Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I know you are. That's why you're watching this type of content. The name of my channel is Manifesting Magic with Dr. J. I'm Dr. J, and on this channel, I discuss everything related to improving who you are to manifest the life you choose. I am on that journey too, so you get to hear my stories, and I'd love to hear yours. As you can see, people comment in this section and share their testimonies. I love it because I think it's a great eye opener for everyone else who's also on this path, right? What I'm discussing today is isolation. As a person who leans more towards the introverted side of a personality trait, if you want to say, because I know introversion's on the spectrum. I don't think it's just an on and off switch. I've seen people who have a little bit, and different times in your life you change, right? It's a characteristic that can shift. People act like it's static. There's nothing static about human beings. Really specific things are static, but there's not a whole lot behaviorally that's static about human beings. All of it can be shifted. A few things that are innate, women bodies make babies. Men bodies provide the seed. Those things are innate, for most of us. So nonetheless, it's okay if nobody gets you. It's okay if nobody gets you. I remember struggling with this concept for a lot of years because people never really tell you how important your social support is in anything that you're working on. They tell you about goal setting. They tell you about how to find success in this thing. And they give you these steps that are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get the college degree, do the internships, make the right networking, have a conversation with someone about your future goals who can help you, have an elevator pitch. They have all these little things that they tell you how to do, but no one really tells you about the social aspects of trying to do something outside of what you've been exposed to, doing something outside your norm, trying to do something else, right? The fact is, you've been around and you've been surrounded by people who are on your frequency, who are pretty much doing what you've been doing, and who pretty much see the world the way that you see it. It's comfortable, it's cuddly, it's fine. It's beautiful if you want to stay in that, right? Tradition serves a lot of purposes that are both positive and negative. And I'm sure if you were a traditional person, you can pull out some positive aspects that you would like to stick with, right? But if you're the kind of person that wants to get outside of tradition, try something new, do something else, a lot of times that's not always received in the environments that we are currently a part of. And mostly because they perceive your growth as something that's going to take you away from the social environment. So it's just truly about love. It's not about anything else but love. That's it. It may come off as a lot of other things: trickery, manipulation, triangulation, narcissism, sometimes narcissistic traits, right? But it's really just love. People love you. They want to have you around. So when people start going on this journey and they start figuring out, hey, I don't have to manifest by default. Hey, I can create the life I choose. Hey, I can really have a say so in how I make my money. I can really have a say so in what I create and what I do. I can really control that. You find that you are not in a company of a lot of believers for the most part. And it is okay. One of the biggest things that I latched on to was how important the connections were to doing something else. And I didn't get that before. I thought you could be connected to the same crowd while you worked on something that was different from what the crowd was doing. And that's not the case. If you are not in a place that understands specifically what you value, specifically what your goals are in life, even if they're kind of vague and even if they're not really detailed, but where you're trying to, the direction you're going towards, right? If you're not around people that get that, then they're not going to feed into it because they don't know how. It's not who they are, and it's not what they've ever had to do to have you in their lives. So a lot of times we don't place enough attention on how it feels to walk that journey and what the isolation of it can sometimes do and how it affects the individual, right? I was always okay with isolation because that's just my personality trait. But I can see for a lot of people, that not having that human interaction and emotional support on a regular basis can be very damaging. It can also be an eye opener about what is where their insecurities might lie when it comes to needing the comfort and needing the emotional support of other people. How much do they need? You start to pay attention to that. Like, how much am I needing from other people that I should be trying to at least give to myself so that I'm not a burden to others when I come into their space? There's nothing wrong with isolation. It's a great time for self-reflection because normally that's what happens. It's a great time to wrestle with whatever you've been struggling with in isolation. It's also a great time to clean up your tongue, which is something that I'm working on. Because when you hear your children speak the same way that you speak, it's an eye opener. I'm just like, oh my God, my daughter's so judgy. She's like real snappy judgy. Oh God, why are they doing that? That's the worst. Why would it? I'm like, oh my God, she sounds just like me. Oopsie, not a perfect mother. Tried to get it right. Well, what I mean is that there's always room for course correction. So isolation also helps you with those types of things because a lot of times you don't have the space or the peace or the silence in your life to truly impact yourself for the better, to truly grow. You're just kind of reacting to everything and being in a haze. And that's not how you want to create that life you want to choose deliberately. Another thing about isolation is to remember that it only takes one. I was having a conversation with my amazing and sweet and very intelligent partner, very wise. And he was telling me about someone in his family being grateful that he saw something else and decided to do something different, and how that opened them up to creating a life for themselves. And they don't want to ever stop going out on a limb and being courageous and doing something different just because you can. And I'm like, hey man, that's golden. That's what most people would want, to affect someone in a way that you can they can develop themselves and just take that nugget and keep going. You never know how you're impacting people. So it only takes one in a group sometimes to say, hey, this isn't working. Let's try something different. And at first that one may become the black sheep. That one may become ungrateful. That one may become rude and dismissive and completely seen as an attack on the family unit, when that one is just truly trying to grow the family unit. And growing a family unit generationally is more than words. It is uncomfortable for everyone involved. And it's just the truth, because it's a growing pain and it has to happen. And if it doesn't, that's when you retreat back into the comfort zones and the lack of growth. And that's when substance abuse happens or vices take over, because you need something to distract you from that bigger picture of knowing that there is more, there is something different. And if you truly want to create that change in your life, you can. And you can also do it for other people just by being the change. Another thing about isolation to remember is that ultimately you don't need validation. I tell you, this is something that I've learned as a woman. I've always been a nerd. It was so funny. It's always been a nerd, but always had some type of I wouldn't say I was over girly when I was growing up. I wasn't. I always had something in me that attracted guys. So it wasn't that I was a wallflower and they didn't see me. So even as early as 13, I had a little boy that was trying to be my girlfriend and be my boyfriend. And I said, yes. And then I got home and my brother was just like, he's going to want to kiss. And I was like, oh, I got to break up with him today. I don't want to kiss nobody. That's gross. I was like 13. And so I literally called that boy and broke up with him that day. And he remembered it. We went to high school together and everything. And he always remembered me as dissing him, but like in a friendly, joking way. And I'm just like, dude, I didn't know what a boyfriend and girlfriend was at the time. I've always had some little boy that was hanging around or whatever. And even in high school, I had a boyfriend that I had for like 3 years all through high school and even my first year in college. So I've always had that part, but I never really was a woman that had the validation of walking the streets and like men, everything shuts down when you walk through the room, kind of thing. And there's not a whole lot of women that are like that. And the ones who are, they play into it and the men play into it. I didn't see this until I was older. I always thought that it was something that was lacking that didn't get the attention the way that I saw other people get attention. But it wasn't that. It's just that it wasn't who I was. I didn't give any energy to it. I didn't perform, and the men rarely perform, but it's a performance. But what I realized about validation is that if you didn't receive that type of validation all the time, especially as a woman, it can do one of two things to you. It can make you feel like you can give you low self-esteem and low self-worth because you feel like no one's ever told me I was beautiful. No one's ever told me I was attractive. No one's ever told me I was, amazing or blah, blah, blah. And you go thirsting for it for the rest of your life, right? It can do that, but it can also be a thing that makes you develop other pieces of who you are, which can then carry you far beyond your looks, far beyond your beauty, far beyond your attractiveness. So in isolation, it's important to remember that being validated is only skin deep. Nobody can really see what's happening on the inside of you. You can't really see the growth that someone else is going through. You think you can, but you can't. They can't see your growth. Where you're suffering, they're growing. Where they're suffering, you're growing. And that's how this generally works. So to need validation from the outside is a useless waste of time. Because in that isolation, you should be growing yourself into a space to where when someone says something good about you, you can smile and say, thank you, I'm in my lane. When someone says something bad about you, you can smile and say, thank you, I'm in my lane, and keep on going. Being alone makes you self-soothe and self-correct in a way that having so many people tell you how great you are all the time, it doesn't develop it. Because I'll tell you this, if you are not in the process of deeply developing who you are spiritually and deeply developing who you are emotionally, you can't have deep relationships. Because the minute it gets to the space where someone is breaking down a wall you have, or someone is a mirror to some behavior that you don't like, you'll shut down and blame it on them. I think isolation is so important because if you can't first figure out what you are and how you tick and what are your flaws, your weaknesses, and then what are your strengths, you're not much good to anybody else. Because the minute they come around and say something that doesn't fit this idea that you have of yourself, you want to shut them out and then push them out of the door. And you never grow into having the deep, loving, and connected relationships and friendships that you know you are capable of. The kind where you don't have to put on a show. The kind where you don't have to feel less than when you walk away and they don't feel less than when they walk away from you. The kind when you can genuinely support other people and be happy for what they are bringing to the table. And you can genuinely say, I have something to bring to the table in every room you walk in. That's the type of relationship you want to have with yourself and with the world. And anything short of that, it's going to keep bringing you back to the same space of needing other people to tell you how great you are. And anybody who doesn't do that, they're out to get you, right? So anyway, it's okay if no one gets you right now. It's okay to be in isolation. It's okay to not need the connection of other people in order to grow in a space for yourself. It's okay. As long as your isolation is temporary, it is a natural aspect of the growth. It's a natural aspect of manifesting. It's a natural aspect of getting to the next life. But it shouldn't be permanent. You should find more people to help you grow on your journey. You should be more connected to people to help you develop and produce more out of you. You should come out of hiding, right? Come out of hiding. Anyway. Isolation is good sometimes. It has beautiful purposes for your manifestations. And my hope is that people can see it that way. And it's not something that makes them afraid and then run away from the world and decide, nobody gets me. I have to stay in this space. Or I don't have any friends. These are the only ones that are around, so I have to be around them. Well, what do you want more? Do you want to grow more? Or do you want to have those little friends to hang out with and watch a movie with on the couch on the weekends? Because it's up to you. You can have whatever you want. Anyway, all right. Somebody's been bothering me to do something, some work or something, I promise people. So let me get back to that. I know this video went a little bit long, but it was heavy on my heart because I was like, man, this is real. And this is something that I deal with all the time. And this is something I know other people deal with, right? Nobody talks about that lonely walk, but it's a lonely walk sometimes, and that's okay. Because you came by yourself, you're going to leave by yourself. So you got to learn how to be alone sometime without feeling lonely. And you got to learn how to know when you feel lonely, be a guest house, like Rumi. I was introduced to that beautiful poem. Be a guest house. Those things are going to come and go, and just watch them. And you're better off that way. The isolation can be healthy. Let it be. Don't let it drive you back to the arms of negative energy, because that's what a lot of people do. Let it drive you forward, even when you don't know what the next step is going to be. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. Check out some of my other videos. And stay beautiful, stay peaceful, and stay in gratitude.